those in the room. So we'll get started here. The Normal Heights Planning Group envisions a healthy, vibrant community that honors unceded Kumeyaay land and cares for all inhabitants. They prioritize inclusive and equitable land use, valuing people over commodification. Through pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, transit-oriented development, open space preservation, and affordable housing, we strive for a vibrant and sustainable neighborhood. Additionally, we promote responsible economic development that supports historic preservation, local businesses, fosters job opportunities, and enhances the overall economic vitality of Normal Heights. The items on the agenda may be addressed out of order. Often is dependent upon when our speakers or technology is ready. The proceedings here are recorded and will be publicly posted on the website afterward. The chat entries are not considered official communications. And please enter your name in the chat if you're on Zoom or on our clipboard on the table on the side here if you're interested in subscribing to our newsletter, to which we send out the agenda and occasionally some other events and announcements. Reading of the rules, 2 minutes per person unless extended by the chair. Please stay on topic. Other questions can be answered offline. That's especially when we have presentations. Sometimes the conversation can meander a little. If it's a little off topic, you can always pull somebody aside as they're leaving the building. Our civic reps are guests and are to be treated with utmost respect. Try to be as factual as possible and share the space, especially for new faces. And I do see some new faces in the crowd here, so thank you for coming. And anyone may attend from anywhere in the world. And we still do not allow horses inside. The next up is non-agenda public comment. 2 minutes per person, and we'll start with the attendees in the room, then we'll go to Zoom and finish up with our board members. Yes.
Redlands Normal Heights Fire Safe Council, and I'm having an event next Monday, November 10th at Unamas. And we're going to talk about defensible space, evacuation, home hardening, and I'm going to leave a few flyers over there, and everybody is welcome, whether you're a homeowner or a renter. We all need to be a little more fire safe. So anyway, if I run out, I can also airdrop it to you. So I'll put them over here. Thank you.
And I really encourage attending these. It's really good information, and Unamas makes amazing tacos. Had them last night for dinner.
Oh, thank you for that. Not Susan. Sorry, can I?
Susan.
What?
We have a question from our board.
Sorry, what time? You may have said 10. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, okay. Yes, thank you.
Any other public comment from the room? All right, then we'll go to.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's so I noticed there's going to be a canyon presentation. Just a little story. 20 years ago, when I first moved to San Diego, I happened to be at a Boys and Girls Club meeting at the Sheraton in the harbor. And I met our city council person, Todd Gloria represented us at that time. And I said, yeah, I live in Normal Heights. And he goes, oh yeah, Normal Heights. All they're interested in is bike trails and canyons. That was 20 years ago, and I see nothing has changed. And meanwhile, I haven't had my street swept this week. You know, when are they going to underground the wires, the Lake Monroe every time it rains? Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned street sweeping and
I did, if I can extend just a little,
please.
I did see one of the other districts, I'm thinking Mission Hills, they didn't get their streets swept. And, you know, they've been cutting this back because it's labor and, you know, street sweeping can make money for the city if they put up signs and write tickets. It makes a lot of money. But, you know, there's no off-street housing because an off-street parking place is worth $40,000 to $100,000, and planning says, well, we don't need off-street parking.
Yeah.
And bicycles.
Is there a particular street or streets you would call out for putting at the top of the list? in Normal Heights?
There's a schedule that the city claims that they follow, and if you pick a certain street, then it's like a service that every city I've lived in. And actually, the state requires it to be swept once a year. And not this coming Thursday, but the next Thursday is the city's last scheduled chance to sweep my street. They did some work on the other side of the street because of the unpaved assessment district alley that just dumps dirt out. But they didn't do both sides. They just did that one side that had like dirt road.
Thank you. Is there a D9 outreach person here tonight? Okay, our outreach person with D9 has changed. There's a new person in that position, and I will make sure that this gets to them. Do we have any other comments from the room? All right, then on Zoom, I see Jim has his hand raised.
Can you hear me? I guess you can't.
I can hear you on Zoom, Jim.
Yes,
This is Danielle.
Yes.
Great. I'll assume that they can hear me in the room. Hello, my name is Jim Barros. I chair the Adams Community Recreation Group over at the Adams Rec Center at the corner of 35th and Adams Avenue. I wanted to let people know that the City of San Diego Park Development is coming forward with some proposed modifications to the general development plan for Ward Canyon Park. That's the park at the corner of 40th Street or the I-15 on-ramps in Adams Avenue. I have asked that more than the normal outreach is made. Normally, the Park Development Group sends notices of a meeting to residences within 300 feet of the park site. I'm hoping that we get a little wider and noticing, and as soon as I have a date, time, location, and how to participate, I'll make that available to everybody. And by the way, I hope you got a chance to look into the park since the mock building's been removed. It's changed the character of that park and made it much more user-friendly, and I hope you all get a chance to visit. Thanks, that's all the time I need.
Thank you. Danielle.
Good evening. I was wondering how the people on Zoom will be able to get one of the flyers about the event this Monday coming up.
For the UNOMAS, do you have a QR code?
I do, absolutely. I sent you a copy of the flyer. So if that could be distributed through the Normal Heights Planning Group email list, that would be one general way, but otherwise, who's speaking right now?
This is Danielle.
Danielle, Normal Heights FSC at yahoo.com. If you send me an email, I will send you a digital one. Would that work?
It would work, but it would be nice if Paul could send it to everybody, because that's how I get the Zoom links for this meeting.
Oh, you didn't
At
get
your
the Zoom link.
suggestion, I will send the fire safe flyer out to the subscribers of NHCPG.
Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you for the Fire Safe Council. My family's house was saved in 1994, but it was very traumatic that day. Thanks.
Okay, good testimonial. Thank you, Danielle. And like I said, don't hesitate to email me at normalheightsfsc@yahoo.com for anything regarding fire safe. Thank you.
Do we have public comment from anyone on the board?
I just wanted to do a quick update for a presentation I did last fall regarding short-term rentals. I went in and checked on the status of licenses within Normal Heights. And I compared September 2024, which I looked at before, with September 2025, and the total number of licenses had decreased from 146 to 120. The number of tier 3 licenses, that's the whole home licenses, decreased from 73 to 61. The number of tier 2 licenses, which would be the licenses for home shares, which is a license that you get if the host lives somewhere on the parcel. It can be in a house or it can be in a house with another house that you use as a short-term rental, or it can be an apartment where the host lives in an apartment building and then there's a short-term rental in that same building. That's the tier 2 license. And then the tier 1 licenses, which are just for if you rent it out as a short-term rental for less than 20 days a year, that decreased from 4 to 2. And what I could tell from the number of whole home, full-time, short-term rentals, which would be all the tier 3s and the tier 2s that are full apartments or full houses, appeared to decrease from about 106 to about 91. So that was just an update on something I presented on last year about this time.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the board? Then next up is our presentation from Canyon Restoration from San Diego Canyonlands. I'll put the presentation up.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for having me today. My name is Jeff Chalcher. I obviously do not have the San Diegan accent. I'm originally from New Zealand. I've been living here for about 3 years, and I've been doing environmental and humanitarian work around the world for about the last 10 years. I've landed here. My wife works for San Diego Coastkeeper. So she looks after the water and the coast and the ocean, and I try and work with communities to look after the rest of it, all of the terrestrial space. I guess my intention of being here today is to really get to know you all, to reintroduce Canyonlands. Some of you may know about. Actually, who does know about Canyonlands? Perfect. Awesome. So, yeah, my intention is really to get to know you all and to know your group. It's obviously a very activated group. Canyonlands is a community benefit environmental nonprofit, and so we really work at the grassroots to support and provide expertise to communities to be able to protect, promote, and restore, and get engaged and activated within nature, and really realize all of the inherent values that not just the canyons, but all of San Diego's nature has. And so what I want to do today is, it'll be kind of informative. I want to introduce the organization, and then I want to finish up after about 15 minutes with some questions and try and take some questions and activate you guys to think about how you're using your nature spaces. And it sounds like you've already done a lot of thinking in that space as well. So I'm really interested to hear from you all and figure out how Canyonlands can be a supporting partner for you guys as a community. So my name's Jesh. Oh yeah, next slide, please. My name's Jesh. I'm the development and projects manager. When I first joined the organization, I came in as the assistant field crew manager. I'd been doing a lot of work in Ireland. My wife and I ran a seal rescue center, and we were rescuing and rehabbing marine mammals and putting them back out into the ocean. And we realized that what's the point in spending all this money rehabbing these baby animals when the ocean is being destroyed as we speak? And so we need to think about the root cause and the solutions. And one of those solutions was inland, upstream on intensive agricultural lands, doing riparian or stream bed restoration to prevent all of the erosion and all of the fertilizers from entering into the waterways, which end up polluting the coast and the seals. So I was very, very engaged in the restoration of working with farmers and working with government. We planted almost 35,000 native trees, and we did a lot of work to buffer the streams and to rebuild those ecosystems so that when we're putting the seals back out into the ocean, they weren't just being poisoned and having to come back to us in the end. And so when I came to San Diego, I looked for a group that was doing restoration similar that I was used to. But obviously everything is different here. The culture is different. The language is still English, but it's very different. And there's also other languages here as well. The whole ecosystem is different. The infrastructure is different, and yet there's a lot of similar carryover. There's a lot of the same issues and a lot of the same solutions that can be layered on. And so after about a year in the field crew, I moved into a development position, and for the last 2 years, I've been working with the team and the executive director to really build out and understand where is the true value and where does Canyonlands lie in society, and how do we use our infrastructure that we have now to help support community groups to activate and protect these spaces and get people out into nature for healing for us and for the biodiversity and these spaces that we rely on as well. So we actually emerged from a community group in South Park, just down the road, where I live now, actually, about 30 years ago. And that group came together to advocate to the city to stop them from paving the canyons as utility access corridors. And they were successful. Switzer Canyon is still a beautiful habitat. Obviously, it has 30th Street running through the middle of it, but there's gnatcatchers, endangered species, or threatened species within those spaces. There's a whole swath of other species that rely on those places as well. And so as they grew from that space, they started working within the city of San Diego jurisdiction and managed to secure 13,000 acres into protected lands under the Multiple Species Conservation Plan, protecting that in perpetuity. However, there's challenges with funding that. So I'll dive into those, dive into all of that later. Ultimately now, we have a full-time team of about 25 people. Half of them are in the field, 40 hours a week, doing incredible work all across the entire region, helping to reduce fire risk, which we'll dive into in a minute, helping to improve ecosystems, and also to get people active and building careers working with the environment instead of extracting and destroying the environment, which is all through prison as well. We're expert urban conservationists, and so for the last 17 years, since 2008, when we became a 501c3, we have been working predominantly within Choice Creek and San Diego River watersheds, so around this area. And depending on funding, we've kind of moved around different areas and done slightly different work. And over that period of time, we've built a very specific skill set that is hyper locally focused, that takes into all of the complex challenges of managing urban ecosystems. And so now we have this team of biologists and restoration ecologists. Actually, our senior restoration ecologist actually lives literally just down the road. He couldn't make it tonight, but Jonathan Applebaum, if any of you know him, he's in the photo there in the back with the beanie. He is a proud Normal Heightsian, if that's how you say it. And so he's done amazing work for the organization for over a decade. And yeah, we're not landowners. We never want to be landowners. That's not our business model. Our business model, a nonprofit business model, is to support community groups and to support land managers like the city, the county, conservancies, community groups to do best practice in these spaces. And that's the beautiful team we have. Thank you. So our mission ultimately is around connecting people with nature to safeguard both biodiversity and quality of life. So I feel like there's a lot of alignment with what I know about you guys already. But ultimately we uplift the communities through ecosystem restoration. Workforce development is a huge part of what's made us successful over the last few years. Environmental education and advocacy, and by harnessing the mutually beneficial power of conservation to heal our communities and to heal the lands that we rely on. And we complete our mission through these 8 operational initiatives. And we just recently, about 4 months ago, had our new strategic plan approved. If anyone wants to dive into that, I'd be happy to talk about it. Strategic plans can be very boring, right? We try to bring ours to life, make it nice and short, and really allow it to activate Canyonlands in society to be useful, and to be valuable and to be healing for the community as well. So you can see on the right there, we've got the 4 active initiatives. We've also activated 2 of them on the left already. We can dive into any one of these, but I won't go too deep. Conservation workforce development is really about addressing systemic inequities within the environmental sector to get people that don't have access to working in nature, the training to be engaged in those spaces, hiring from local communities to look after local canyons and local open spaces. Healing with nature is central to our entire mission and vision. It's about bringing people and nature back together. Always have been, while recognizing that we live in modern society, we need all of these utilities. How do we work within nature, and how do we live in nature that doesn't continue to push nature out, but actually that we're bringing nature in and finding a way to manage both increasing populations and the need to safeguard and increase biodiversity in the face of climate change as well. So integrated watershed management, we look at individual canyons, but we also look at entire watersheds. So the San Diego River watershed, for example, for you guys. we see similar issues happening without the watershed, and it takes watershed scale approach to really fix these issues. Regional fire resilience, it's amazing to see Fire Safe Council in here. We love the Fire Safe Council network, they're incredible. And then there's some others. We've got, deep ties with the Kumeyaay, obviously the original stewards, the ones with the real knowledge. We've just got contemporary knowledge about how to manage these spaces. And so we have active partnerships, we have active projects that we work on that center Kumeyaay practice, center Kumeyaay values, knowledge. And then there's a few others that we could dive into as well. So when we talk about the canyons, we are really talking about something that makes San Diego globally unique, and even within the region, very unique. You look at the difference between San Diego and LA. In LA, there's huge urban sprawl. It takes a lot of people more than half an hour, sometimes even an hour, to get to any type of nature. Within San Diego, no one lives more than 10 minutes drive from nature. But not everyone has access to the coast, right? There's a lot of barriers. It also takes a long time to get there, and then you have to find parking, all of those kind of things. But everybody lives 10 minutes to nature, to open space, and that's really incredible. The reason that happens is because we've got these watersheds that basically come from the mountains, and there's a whole network. You can see the white lines on the map there. You've got these major rivers that come down from the mountains out to the coast, and a huge network of canyons that connect them. And so, yes, we're Canyonlands, but we're also talking about the canyons being this incredible connectivity and this fabric that our communities live within. We can't get away from that. So how do we really recognize that value? All of the yellow dots on there, that's the area that Canyonlands, those are the Canyonlands' project areas. So you can see we really work from Camp Pendleton all the way out to Warner Springs, way out near Hakumba, we've got crews working, and all the way down to the border as well. But the majority of our work happens within the San Diego River watershed and the Toyos Creek watershed on city-owned property. So interesting things about this region, which a lot of you will know, but this is a globally important biodiversity hotspot. We're part of the California floristic region, and we also have this incredible, all of these microclimates that create incredible diversity between the border, down into the past the border, from the deserts out to the coast and up into the mountains. San Diego County is the most biodiverse county in the contiguous United States, which is pretty incredible. It's worth knowing, it's worth appreciating, it's worth loving and trying to safeguard those things as well. But there's also a nexus of challenges. Obviously, the border is right there. There's contentious, there's a lot of challenge in that space right now. There's the ever-present fire ecology that we live within, but it's getting more and more intensive due to years of heavy rain and then long periods of drought, and then years of heavy rain and long periods of drought, which, if you were a plant, you like the years of rain, especially all of the invasives, they grow incredibly quickly, and then we get 2 or 3 years of drought, and invasive plants, most of them can't handle that. A lot of them might grow 6 to 8 feet tall. They can't handle the summer heat. They dry out and they become perfect flash fuel, which is a major issue within almost all of the open space areas within the region. We have this incredibly unique mesa canyon topography, and that comes from the rivers and the water that has always flown from the mountains to the coast. Obviously, things have changed over time, over geological time. But our communities are predominantly all based on the mesa tops, right? We've developed as much as we possibly can, and we're continuing to develop and use up all those mesa tops, remembering that that all used to be habitat as well. So we have already created communities within nature, and because of the difficult access challenges of the canyons, we're lucky that they have been preserved. However, as we get into a little bit later, there are ever-present threats, and we see now more and more homes being built and developments being put into canyons, and that continued sprawl happening. And so how do we recognize the need for more affordable housing? I know that's one of your big issues, and also that it's not pushing nature further and further and further out and making our cities less and less climate safe, climate resilient. So Canyonlands has 5 main conservation strategies. We have ephemeral stream and riverine habitat restoration. So ephemeral streams are the streams that we see in a lot of our canyons where they don't have running water all year round. They have water when it rains and they have water for a little bit after the time it rains. They are the drainage systems. Often they have, you know, the natural hydrology has been used to lay the sewage pipes and all kinds of utilities through those canyons as well. But we do a lot of work within those spaces because that is the main area where water exists. And so therefore plants exist and therefore wildlife exists in those spaces. The challenge is that often the invasive species are the ones that love the water the most and just really take over. And so we have things like this. This is Navajo Canyon just across the 8 from you guys. We're doing a lot of work removing all of these palm trees by helicopter at the moment. Because they are such a massive fire threat. I know you guys are hyper aware of the risks of fire with your history in this neighborhood, and then also with the Halloween fire, 370 days ago, last Halloween. So we do this very comprehensive restoration work that removes the invasives, that goes back through and replants fire resilient native canopies, oak trees, sycamores, the things that are actually very fire resilient. And they provide a huge amount of habitat for all the species that have managed to hold on and use these spaces. We also pair that with upland coastal sage scrub habitats. We have this beautiful coastal sage scrub habitat, which is very unique in this area. That's where threatened, endangered species like the California gnatcatcher, they need those spaces to thrive and survive. The gnatcatcher is the one on our logo. It's often referred to as the bird that saved the West, especially within this area. And we'll get into I think it was actually on the last slide, but we don't need to go back. So the multiple species conservation plan, which was designed, actually, yeah, we'll just go back one. Yeah, so back one, sorry. One more. Yeah, so in the bottom right hand side there is the plan for the multiple species conservation plans. You guys may already be well aware of these. So our one is the multiple species conservation plans are basically multi-jurisdictional legislation that creates this wildlife connectivity from the coast all the way to the desert, and creates these wildlife corridors that are essential for the flow of life. And so each of the different regions has a multiple species conservation plan. This one doesn't show the one within San Diego region, but that's because that's already active. The purple, green, and the East County one are currently in development. They were developed 27 years ago. They were incredibly forward-thinking pieces of legislation that protected a whole swath of species, rather than what happens in the conservation spaces. We're usually just focusing on one species, whereas this protected the habitat for thousands of species. The challenges with that had been that there was never really enough funding to continue all the maintenance. And that's where Canyonland stepped in. We worked with state funding to help the city and help regional partners to fill in some of those gaps. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, thank you. So then we've got biodiversity conservation. That's a whole range of things, from birds to amphibians to plants. And our next big project, which is a really exciting one, that's working with mountain lions, creating a wildlife corridor. You guys may have seen on the news, there's that huge wildlife corridor that they're building over the one up near LA. That's costing millions of dollars. Well, we have an underpass that has mountain lions that have been captured on wildlife cameras. And we are clearing out that entire underpass and building an entire riparian or riverside canopy on the other side, so that when those mountain lions come down through the San Pasqual Valley from the Wajito Creek down in San Pasqual Valley, that it's a welcoming entry point. Otherwise, they're crossing the road and really a threat from being hit by vehicles and all kinds of things. Fire resilient wildland urban interface. This is a very relevant one, and so. As you guys are aware, the city has their brush management zones, and any property that the city owns that's within 100 feet to private property, they manage on an annual, pretty much annual cycle. But it's challenging, and we work very closely with the open space division, and we know firsthand that they do absolutely everything they can with the resources that they're given, and they never budgeted enough to do the absolute best. And so what we do is we work with the state, and we've received several $1 million over the last 5 years to come and work on city land and to do that brush management work, so that they can use their resources to do additional work elsewhere within their jurisdiction. We also go in and we do it with a specific habitat friendly lens. And so we're not going in and just destroying habitat. We're not going through and just hitting the acres. We see legislation coming down even from the state level that we need to get the acres, so that we're protecting communities. It's like, well, if you go through and you just completely clear everything, you actually create more of a problem. That if there's a fire, the embers are going to come straight through like a bowling alley, as well as soon as it rains, all the invasive species love that open degraded area. And so you create a perpetual maintenance problem. We go through and we do a much more selective, we work with the native plants, we work with the native habitat, we reduce it to 50% coverage, with the understanding that after 2 years, those things will grow back and they'll shade out the invasive species that would otherwise grow. And so we're thinking long term rather than, hey, let's just keep spending $1 million every year and putting a patch on it. Yeah, next one. Thank you. We can fly through this one, but basically our model really is this reciprocal model for our field crew. And we have about 15 members of our field crew. And then seasonally during the winter, we scale up to a larger crew that goes through a workforce development training program that trains them on all of the skills needed to be an effective environmental leader and effective environmental, and send them on a career path in the environmental space. But ultimately, natural resource funding, so funding for fire safety or funding for mountain lions or funding for whatever to do with natural resources, can support people doing training to be in the space and to learn and to build careers. And at the same time, the funding for workforce development and for education and for community engagement can serve the natural resources across. So we create this reciprocal model where people are serving nature and nature is serving people, and we get double the amount of money by doing that, rather than just going after competitive natural resource grants as well. Next slide, thank you. Perfect. And then ecosystems have a similar reciprocal relationship with community renewal. So there's been a massive push for those of you who voted for Prop 4, that is the climate bond. It's a $10 billion bond over 10 years. They've appropriated 3.3 billion of it in this first budget cycle. That funding is all for planning or implementation of climate-related work. So a lot of that is fire resilience work, but also there is flooding, there's sea level rise, there's a whole range of climate and nature-related work. And a lot of that is nature-based solutions. It's looking at how do we not just keep putting more and more concrete into these spaces and actually creating more problems, but how do we start to build blue and green infrastructure into our communities that helps to slow the flow of water, so that we're starting to harness the water when it rains rather than sending it out and then being in a drought next few weeks. And also starting to look at fire resilience in the long term as well. So there's a real opportunity for communities such as yours and all of the other amazing communities across the region to engage in these nature spaces as stewards. But also Canyonlands is really interested in exploring different areas where we can build new teams, where we can hire people from a local area that they're coming through, they're working across the entire region, getting lots of skills, but then they're coming to your local community planning group, and then they're the expert on what needs to happen in this local community down the road. Next, thanks. So does time in canyons benefit our communities? How does time in the canyons make you feel? Anyone want to share? Does anyone here spend time in the canyons?
Used to.
Used to? Nice.
Occasionally.
Is it?
I think for me, the canyon space that I'm most familiar with is the Devil's Box. And it seems very close to the freeway, so I don't feel at ease there.
Sure. It's a very good point.
I went to USB, so I was in that canyon
Oh, sure.
multiple times a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've seen your blue
A blue, yeah.
things in there.
We work with the city ranger,
Okay.
Steve on that, so awesome. Yeah, technology is amazing. So we've been surveying our volunteers and program participants over the last year to really understand, and this is just one aspect of it, but to really understand what is the psychological and health-related changes that happen when people come and spend just 2.5 hours with us in the canyon doing a volunteer event. It's not a huge commitment, it's one-off. And we extrapolate this out through our programming. We've got 6-month internships for youth from Hoover High School, just down the road, and Crawford High School will be starting next year as well. So we can extrapolate out those healing benefits. But it's pretty amazing to see some of the difference, some of the language that's used beforehand: nervous, anxious, curious, sleepy, calm, chill, and then tired. You know, tired, obviously it's the morning when people come along to these events, but then you flip that and then afterwards you're still getting tired. There's still a tired there, but that tired is associated with satisfied, relaxed, helped, peaceful, connected, fulfilled. So many incredible words that really represent healthy communities. And so how can we extrapolate this into this community? That's what I want to lead into the discussion later on. How do we start to replicate that engagement with nature, that people have an opportunity to be out in nature and to heal and to feel part of a community when community action is so important right now? And that hope that comes from community action is critical for bringing us together during challenging times. One example of that, thank you, is for us is we, about 20 years ago, we got funding and developed the City Heights Loop Trail. Many of you may not even know about this. This is a beautiful trail. You know, it's not actually that far from here. You can park at any one of these spots. You can search it up on Google, City Heights Loop Trail. Canyonlands and the city of San Diego co-manage this space. We actually have a $3 million project happening in Manzanita Canyon right now. We're going to re-bioengineer the entire stream to protect it from erosion and then plant a whole bunch of oak trees, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So come down and have a look, and then come down and again in a year's time and see how that place is changing. But it's ultimately, it's a 4-ish mile, 4-canyon walk, and it weaves between the canyons and the streets. So I think, you know, listening to what you guys were saying, looking at these opportunities within this area, are there opportunities? Are there not opportunities? What are the opportunities within Normal Heights Canyons to engage with nature, to heal with nature, to get access to these spaces, and at the same time, do our best to not push nature out of the spaces that we go to see nature. It happens so often. We're like, wow, this place is so amazing. Like, there's all these trees in this beautiful area, like the Mission Valley, for example, beautiful riparian area. Oh, why don't we build malls, and why don't we build all this development here? Oh, well, we just destroyed everything. And so, yeah, we need that infrastructure, we need malls, we need all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, we push nature out of the space because it was a beautiful space. And so how do we think about that in this localized context as well? Next slide, please. So now let's dial in and make this a little bit more relevant for you guys. There's some maps here. And I think, I mean, you guys will be very well aware of the canyons near you. I think it's important to put this in a setting, and this is just a small snapshot of the San Diego River, mid-city area, and built in there as well. And you can really see how the canyons are this arterial network that weaves throughout our communities. So regardless of whether people go down into the community, into the canyon, we take for granted how much value they add to our society. And so we really work at Canyonlands to help people to recognize that and get out in their local space and be curious and understand how beautiful those canyons can be with a little stewardship. One of the challenges that I looked up for the Normal Heights Canyons, you can see there, it's a little dark on the left-hand side, I apologize, but I've got the APO, the ownership parcels. You can see that a lot of those canyons are very, very segmented, predominantly all privately owned, apart from a few city areas. You guys probably know this extremely well. And so any nature access, any trail building, any restoration efforts within those spaces, there's challenges, but there's also opportunities there. Okay, if there's large landowners. I think there's a faith-related organization within the area as well. If they're interested in healing with nature, things like that, then there's opportunities to work on private land. We can help with that as well. We've got the insurance, we can get communities out and lead those volunteer events. But obviously working on the city-owned property is the easiest. Canyonland has a master right of entry, so we can do a whole range of work anywhere on city property because they know and trust that we have the best possible practices. So it's interesting to look at the parcels and then really like understand, okay, well, what kinds of things does the normal house community want to do in the canyons, in nature? Okay, and then who do we need to start talking to get the permissions to do it? And we can help with that, or you guys can lead the way, and we can be supportive of whatever works best. Interestingly, in the middle map there, that map, the green polygon that's got the hatching, that is the multiple habitats planning area. So that significantly limits any development from happening within those spaces. So that could be a challenge if you're looking at things like trails, but it's really beneficial if you're looking at things like getting the community out to do restoration, to do fire resilience work, because that is part of the multiple habitats planning area. And a lot of it cannot be developed in perpetuity. Next one, please. Thank you. Thank you. So what are the threats? Well, I think you guys know the first one pretty well, and it's nice that you're here. I'm sure you do a lot of work.
Thank you for the logo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate for the Fire Safe Council Network. They are absolutely crucial for the safety of our communities and also for propagating information. So it's great to know that you guys do work together in some way. Wildfire is an ever-present threat throughout the entire region, and we're ultimately only 1 or 2 major wildfires away from everybody completely not caring about biodiversity whatsoever anymore and just saying, let's pave the entire canyon network and build, concrete it over. We already see it from the state level after the LA fires and the big fire season last year, is that there's new ordinances to go out and to remove as much acreage as possible. And a lot of the time that's done well, and a lot of the time it's not done. But Canyonland sits in the space of working at that level to bring state funding down, to bring regional funding in, to try and do the work that's funded through the fire resilience lens and actually make it serve nature and enhance nature rather than destroying it. Interestingly, the biggest issue around wildfire in terms of open space comes from invasive species encroachment. And you've probably already talked about this, but there's 3 major pieces. For fire resilience, there's home hardening, by far the best, although obviously expensive. You've got defensible space. Defensible space is your zone 0, which is 0 to 5 feet. You've got zone 2, you've got 5 feet to 30, 25? 30. And then you've got zone 3, or you've got this area, which is from 30 out to 100 feet. And a lot of the time, the space that we work in is that zone 3, where the city owns that property, and they have a mandate under the county fire code to do work in that space. But that entire paradigm of a fire break is really based on backcountry work, and ultimately the issues within our open space areas. If everyone hardened their homes and we had extremely hard communities, that would be amazing. In combination with very well managed private property and landscapes that are ember resistant, that aren't completely moonscaped. There's some combination of ornamental and native plants that are ember resistant and can catch those embers, can be lightly hydrated and not waste water in those spaces as well. And then ultimately it would be nice if we could do best management practices within the canyons, remove the invasive species and the dead and dying species, plants that are within those areas, and try and enhance those ecosystems, look after the soil, and really be addressing the problem rather than just saying, okay, well, here's our last line of defense. So Canyonlands comes in with this model of this holistic model that looks from the very bottom of the drainage all the way up the slopes into people's properties, and then works with the fire safe councils to help advocate on the home hardening piece as well. The really important piece is that we can't just go out and decimate nature to protect our communities, because it's not actually the solution. It might look good up front, but it doesn't actually solve the problem long term. It's just like a patchwork that's going to cause more issues and more costs in the long term. Urban sprawl, not such a big issue in this area, though you may be aware of, I don't know, some developments that are being built. We are seeing a lot over the entire region of private parcels that aren't within NHPA that are being proposed right now for, apartments, 5 apartments going in, 10 apartments going in. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the Preserve Greater Golden Hill group. They just set up, you may be through the Fire Safety Council. They're doing some pretty amazing work. They managed to get a land developer to donate. It's a fairly small parcel, but it's worth $2 million. He's donating it to the 501c3. He will get a tax deduction. Happy days for him. And he also gets a lot of good credit for doing the right thing and not building a bunch of apartments there as well. So there's some really interesting models about how can communities protect the nature that is so close and so intertwined within our communities as well. And then erosion, you guys will be aware, there's some erosion challenges. And often that happens where the urban interface and the stormwater infrastructure meets the canyon. And as we get bigger and bigger storms from climate change and bigger fluctuations, we get huge amounts of water coming through and they can blow out the canyon. And so we really need to do restoration. I mean, when you get erosion, like some of the big ones in there, that takes a lot of engineering. But really where we start to see erosion happening, that's where we need to do restoration, because native plants often have very deep roots and they can help to secure the soil and make sure that those small gullies don't start to form, because we know in 2 or 3 or 5 years, those are going to become new mini canyons, which is not ideal. I can skip over this one, but just there is some incredible habitat and biodiversity. I was out in the canyon just the other day. So that's just near the road. You guys will recognize the prickly pear, the native opuntia, really important habitat for coastal cactus wren. It's a regionally threatened species. There's also a lot of intact coastal sage scrubs, so there is habitat for things like the cactus wren, our favorite little bird, but also a lot of raptors. There's signs of mammals using that space. There's potential for that to be a wildlife corridor for mammals to come up and down from the communities down into the San Diego River area or down near those spaces as well. You go in and you see all these signs of life. There's a lot of beauty within those canyons. There's a lot of vibrance and abundance, and with some community stewardship, with some events we can help set up, and we can really make the most of that, and we can lead to that in a minute. I've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but it's also something that we could potentially do. You can see in this image, that's 2 of our crew members. These brown areas, all of that is invasive mustard, wild mustard, which comes from Europe. It grows up very quickly as soon as it rains, and then it completely desiccates and just becomes this incredibly flashy vegetation or fire fuel. And so what happens is we see a legacy of the brush management zones that have been completely trimmed down to nothing. The wild mustard has come in, and then we get this entire ocean of fire fuel. So what Canyonlands does is we come into those spaces and we help to get rid of all of that fire fuel and start to get some native habitat back into those spaces that can actually help with fire resilience. So if there's spaces within your community that you're interested in kind of looking at and addressing and seeing if there's a better way that things can be done, then we're certainly interested in having those conversations with you. And then just to finish up, this is what was the name of the park you said before?
Devil's Sandbox?
Yeah.
This is maybe not. Do you know that space?
The end of Collier.
It's on the east side.
On
Eugene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eugene, yeah, that's
So I think there's a lot of community stewardship opportunities, and we can bring all of these pieces back together: the healing in nature, activating the community, and being able to get out there together and build friendships in nature, doing something that's purposeful. Going out and doing some biodiversity blitzes, doing some educational stuff around the incredible native habitat that is there and the species that can be found. I saw a bunch of butterflies, I saw a couple of native bees. there's loads of exploration and curiosity, not just for kids, but for people of all ages, to get out, to be in nature, to heal, and to be curious right through our entire lives. So there's spaces like this. There's obviously mountain bikes that go through this space. I'm not sure whether that is permitted or unpermitted, wanted, unwanted. It's interesting though, looking at the tracks. When we look at tracks for mountain lions, for deer, and you always see tracks for mountain bikes and stuff as well. So it's interesting thinking about what is the current usage of these spaces and what do we want it to be, and how do we encourage the use of it in the way that we want it to be through the way that we engage with the space ourselves. And so areas like this, it's very dry. This could be a really nice community restoration site that we could work with you on if we wanted to. Obviously, we need to do some fundraising and we need to figure out how to do that together. Who owns that land? I think it's city land, this piece. But there's lots of opportunities to engage in these spaces, not just as a place to visit, but also as a place to get active. And yeah, so there's a couple of questions up there. If anyone has any questions for me, I love your guys' view. I was scoping around town the other day and just really enjoying it. It's so beautiful. I think, you know, some of the value of having those heavy transit ways moving through the community, but then having it buffered by nature, you know, that provides a lot of air pollution reduction, a lot of noise reduction. And so, yeah, that was probably a little longer than 15 minutes, but if anyone has any questions, then please feel free to ask. And
Yeah, I think we'll start right here.
So if maybe you got that from my 2 minute, is I'm really interested in the water pollution from the flow. You mostly mentioned, I thought that was funny, you mentioned the mustard. In the 60s, they planted that mustard after a fire. So because it grows fast and it keeps the mudslides down. And so I wonder if that's the same mustard plant that they were planting, you know, back when I was a kid. But my main concern is they don't sweep the streets here, and it does occasionally rain. And I know that Choya's Creek drains into the Back Bay, and they track the pollution from our streets. So is there any way you could fold in, you know, a little bit more neighborhood maintenance? You did talk about hardening neighborhoods against fire, you know, the residents, and Pacific Palisades was totally unharmed. I'm from that area. But in Pasadena, that was completely residential. Pacific Palisades was like and Palisade is like a hill cliff, you know, there's a cliff, and you know, so those people were literally living in the canyon.
yeah,
And, you know, one of the canyon stands is Carbon Canyon at the end, you know.
ironic.
But are you considering, what I'm trying to talk about, are you considering the runoff that, you know, wild plants are one thing, but, you know, all the pet waste, the car auto pollution, the oil construction, a lot of the homes here were built early and they have lead and asbestos elements. Do you think any about like keeping the street clean, you know, and maybe better trash collection? And
yeah, I think that's a great idea. And you know, there's a lot of work. We're part of the Choya's Creek Blue-Green Infrastructure Coalition. And so there's some really interesting pieces that actually in the Mid-City Development Plan, I'm not sure what it is, but you can see some of those elements around creating green communities, but there's also areas where, yes, okay, maybe it'd be better if the streets were swept and all of the pollution wasn't there. But if it does rain, how do we slow the flow of water? How do we dump some of that flow of water into small green alleyways, into trees, into gardens that are built into the mesa and within the communities?
oh, they don't have any storm drains.
Exactly.
On the mesa, and yeah, there are areas that form, lakes that just soaks down, but
Yeah.
it does through my other work.
Mhm.
Other people have kind of like attributed the heavy metals and other things that are in choice to, you know, back
Definitely.
to automobiles and human beings living.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And we work really closely with Coastkeeper, who does a lot of that sampling
Coastkeeper, yeah.
as well. And so, yeah, we've got programs that we're working on. Really, like, there's no point in doing everything downstream where the problem is already too big to fix. And so, how do we look at the entire watershed and right up into the tops of these canyons and out into the communities to start doing lots and lots of small projects which actually accumulate into impacts downstream.
Street sweeping is like a major thing.
Sure.
They used to do.
Okay, we have a Zoom participant, Danielle, and then after that, Jim. Danielle, go
Thank you,
ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes.
My question, well, first I'll make a comment. While you were giving your presentation, thank you very much. It was wonderful. I checked the Mid-City Community Plan Ideas Report, which is the preview to the draft report for Mid-City's Community Plan. And in Normal Heights, the only canyon-ish place that the city is planning to do anything is at the end of Eugene Place. They're calling it a pocket park in their ideas report. I don't know what that would look like, but there is no plans for any canyon trails or anything at the north end of Normal Heights. And then looking next door to the community to the east, Kensington has 3 different canyon loop trails and improvements and all this other stuff. So I would advise anyone on the Mid-City Community Plan Working Group who represents Normal Heights to advocate for more canyon activities for Normal Heights, similar to what Kensington has. And then moving one more neighborhood eastward, you mentioned something about San Carlos getting palm trees helicopter lifted out of canyons. So my question is that on city land or private property? Because it would be wonderful to have all of the palm trees along Montezuma that helped to make the fire go faster up Montezuma on Halloween, get all lifted out. And we already know those are all on private property. So how do we make private property owners more accountable for when fires start on their property, and how can we get those darn palm trees out of there in every canyon everywhere, city land or private land, which it looks like Normal Heights is all private land canyons. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. And you're preaching to the choir. I agree. I think, you know, on the trails piece that you asked about, I think possibly, and I don't know the idea, the mid-city development plan enough. It only just came across my radar and I browsed through it the other day. But I think probably one of the challenges there is how much private property there is. But I definitely recommend, you know, for the group to follow up on that and to advocate for restoration and potentially any trail networks if that's possible. And then on the palm side of things, very good point. You know, we've been eyeing up those Montezuma palm trees for years, and because it's private property, we can't get state funding to do work on private property. It's taxpayer money a lot of the time that we're going after these grants. And ever since the fire, we've been working with the Pentel and Talmadge and Kensington and there's another one in there, the Fire Safe Councils and the San Diego Fire Foundation, who I think provides some funding for you guys each year as well. Eldorado.
Hills.
Exactly. So we've been working with all of them to try and figure out the pitch. How do we convince, or how do we get that landowner to want to agree to have us come in and, first of all, to get the entry, because that is bread and butter work. We could do that incredibly easily. Remove all of those palm trees, especially, I'm not sure if you've been down there recently, but as soon as they burnt all of the stuff, all of the dead stuff. The palms are perfectly back, healthy and green again. And because there's a lot of light getting into the stream now, all the baby palms have just sprung up. So there's like about 400 new baby palms that are coming up. So the problem is not going to stop. It's going to get worse again. And so, yeah, we're actively working on that. I think the ones that we've done in Del Cerro, in Navajo Canyon and Ruffin Canyon and a few others that we've done work in, those have all been city property, and the city is very actively engaged in partnership with us. The Open Space Division and the National Resource Manager, we work really closely with them. I agree. I think, you know, not all palms are bad palms, and I think palm trees are iconic in this region, and so we're not saying that we want to destroy and get rid of every palm, but like the Canary Island date palm and especially the Mexican fan palm, those two are really invasive, and they don't only create a lot of fire risk, but they also choke up the whole ecosystem and cause a lot of erosion and water quality issues as well. So I agree. Let's touch base and let's get the Montezuma palms cleaned up.
Next up is Jim.
Hi, very informative presentation. Thank you very much. And by the way, you did a good job with the language barrier.
Thanks.
Wanted to take the moment to remind folks that there's going to be new opportunities for walking and recreational connection from us on the Mesa down to Mission Valley, the potential anyway. Many of you may be aware of Mission Center Parkway, which is just below us to the north in Mission Valley. And it provides one of the only pedestrian and bicycle ways to cross the Highway 8. At the north end of Mission Center Parkway, the San Diego State University is putting in a bridge. We're going to have a pedestrian, bicycle, and motor vehicle bridge across the river from Mid-City Parkway to Fenton Boulevard, over where the library is. And with that connection, it makes it more important or more reasonable to try to develop some sort of walking path from Eugene or somewhere up here in the Mesa down below. I certainly would be in favor of that and wanted people to realize that's another opportunity to have hopefully appropriate use of the canyons. And thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. Sounds like there's a lot of activity going on in the space. So I'm keen to stay engaged, and if anyone wants to reach out to me, also, yeah.
I was wondering, you mentioned that a lot of the canyon normal heights is under the multiple species conservation plan. Does that mean that would trail development be prevented in those protected areas?
Possibly. It definitely puts some limitations on it. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it does mean that the habitat is prioritized in those spaces over everything else. But I mean, I do also see that that's not always, that's not always the rule book as well. So
Okay.
I think, yeah, let's follow up on it and see what's the best option for that.
Okay.
I had a question.
Yeah.
What is the wildlife blitz with iNaturalist?
So
I saw like a bullet point that you guys do wildlife blitz with iNaturalist. I was just curious what that was.
Yeah, for sure. So, actually, it's kind of in partnership with the Natural History Museum. They do a lot of work where they record a lot of community science. And iNaturalist is just an app. It's you may know it for those of you who don't. It's an app where you go out and you take pictures of plants or caterpillars or birds or whatever it is, and if you get a decent enough photo, then it identifies it for you, or else it sends it to a researcher and the researcher identifies it for you, and then all of that data goes into large-scale data that helps drive decision-making around what species are present in what areas as well. So one of the things we do is train people to use iNaturalist by themselves. Sometimes it can feel funny just going out into nature and just sitting there. That is nice. I enjoy that, meditating or whatever. But having something to do that is actively purposeful and is contributing to science and decision making is also really fun as well. It's like that Pokemon Go game that people used to play. It's like the real life version of that. And so there's people can go out and do it themselves, but also we do bio blitzes. So you might have a community event and you have 15 or 50 people show up, whatever it is, and everyone goes out and just surveys as much as you possibly can get. And then you come back and you share your results and kind of talk about what you found. And it's a way to help support nature and also to record what's actually happening in the backyard as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sure.
I heard you talking about community plans.
Mhm.
I right now am developing our CWPP.
Nice.
You're familiar with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, would you be willing to collaborate with me on that?
Yeah.
At least look it over and
Yeah, I think I mean, you probably already worked with Morgan from the Fire Safe Council. She's, I think, the best resource for that. And I think CAL FIRE is just coming out with some incredible maps and resources.
Right, she'll apply all those for me, but I wanna make it just, custom, lights.
Yeah, we can definitely,
So maybe there's something that you've noticed is wrong or could be elaborated on briefly.
Yeah.
She likes summaries, not
yeah,
longhand things, so,
sounds good. I'd
I'll
love
get in
to.
touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. Send me an email. We can set up a time and have a look through it. And
Perfect,
sounds
thank you.
good. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, one more question over here.
Thank you very much. I'm Ellie Oppenheim. And since the topic of trails has come up, I'd like to comment on that. I respect the work that the Canyonlands Group is doing broadly. As a former director of recreation and parks for the city of San Diego
Mhm.
and an avid hiker, I'm a big advocate for trails.
Mhm.
However, I do not support developing trails in the canyons between Mission Valley and Normal Heights. I moved here from Bankers Hill 3 years ago, when the homeless population had overwhelmed Bankers Hill and left me and my neighbors feeling unsafe around our homes. The homeless came into our streets when they were living in Balboa Park, just a block away in my case, in the gas lamp, camped out on the streets of Bankers Hill that panhandled. Unfortunately, too many of them also imbibed in alcohol and drugs, and generally they took over the neighborhood. If we open the canyons from Mission Valley into Normal Heights with trails, I'm afraid that the trails and surrounding areas will become havens for homeless people to sleep and to live. A further problem that's been also alluded to in the last few minutes is opening the canyons in Normal Heights creates a serious danger of fires in these steep canyons. I live at the top of one of those canyons on Mountain View Drive. It terrifies me to think that people can get into those canyons, start fires to eat or to stay warm, and that we can wind up with another disastrous fire racing up the canyons, overtaking homes and property in Normal Heights. For these reasons, while I support broadly the work you're doing in the Canyonlands, I oppose any canyon trail development between Mission Valley and Normal Heights.
I think it's a very, very, very valid point.
I actually have, two questions myself. One is, you talked about workforce development. Is there a path in that to CAL FIRE?
We would love to develop one. We've had discussions with them. I think having a lot of our crews hired from within the Choice Creek watershed and kind of the wider Choice Creek and mid-city area. And I think a lot of people that work for CAL FIRE tend to be backcountry lovers, or they live out in those spaces as well. So we're definitely having those conversations and trying to create a pathway that encourages people to go into CAL FIRE or SDG&E or stormwater works, or, that's our ultimate goal, is to have like a 1-year training where you come in, you build up skills to be really proficient in your job with Canyonlands.
Yeah.
And then you could have a track or a training course, hopefully that was university aligned or industry aligned, that would get people kind of specialized industry certification so that they can then go on into high paying jobs.
Okay.
As well.
My second question is, I get that you can lift a palm tree out of a canyon, but you have to free it from the dirt. So how do you get the root ball out of the soil in order to lift it out?
Very good point. We don't. If we took the root ball out, then we would completely disturb the stream bed and cause a lot of erosion, because you'd be ripping out, all of the root system. That would create a lot of erosion. And so what we do, it would also take a lot of additional permitting because you're creating huge grading or impacts to the stream bed as well. So what we do is we cut them off at around about knee high. We go through, there's a whole process. It takes months to set it up. The crews go down, often it's very inaccessible. We flag all of the sensitive species within those spaces. We prep every single palm tree. So we remove all of the dry skirt up to about 4 to 6 feet. So that when the chainsaws come through, we're not going through all of the dry, the palm fronds and everything and creating shrapnel that goes throughout the entire stream bed. Then the palms are felled, chain at about knee high. So you leave the base in the ground and then it's helicopter lifted up by a chain. And it's really quick. They can do about 500 palms in a day if there's a good landing zone within the canyon. So at the end of Light and Way, for example, in Navajo Canyon was a big landing area for us. And then the whole process of restoration comes back after that. So we're putting in riparian loving species that help with water pollution. We're not here anymore. Water pollution as well as canopy as well. So we're putting in reeds and stuff like that basically grow around they fill in all around the trunks of or the bases of the palms. And so you're not actually creating any damage to the stream bed, but you're getting out the seed producing palms and the fire, risky palms at the same time.
And the stump doesn't grow back like when you put an onion in water.
No, it doesn't. Once the palms get to about, once the trunk gets to about 6 to 8 feet, if you cut it off at that level, then what's it called? Like the apical growing stem, the growing medium is already too high.
Oh.
And so it won't regrow. So only when we're cutting small ones, sometimes what we have to do is just cut an X into the top of it and apply a little bit of herbicide just to kill that middle piece.
Mm.
But any of those big ones, they die straight away. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Thank you, good.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, we will take a 10-minute break. Parker, keep us honest. We're back. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for October. Do we have a motion? Okay, I'll second. Do we have any comment on the minutes, changes, modifications? Not, take it to a vote. All in favor? And that looks unanimous.
I absolutely.
Oh, okay, and one abstention. Next item is the Community Planners Committee, which is the roll-up of all the chairs for all the planning groups meet once a month on citywide issues. They normally meet on the 4th Tuesday of the month, but next month it collides with, or this month it'll collide with Thanksgiving. So they're going to hold it on Tuesday, December 2nd, which is our normal time. So the question is, do we want to move our meeting or send a representative from our meeting to the CPC?
I'll go to CPC.
Okay. Then I will hand you the owl.
Oh, great.
Wait, now I'm back out. Never mind.
No, you just have to deliver it.
Okay. I was like, as long as I'm not, I was like, I'll need a tutorial of them.
Our chair is versed in how to set it up, and
Cool.
she just plugged it into her laptop.
Okay.
She might want you to join as host to let people in while she's running the meeting.
Got it. Okay, who's
Yeah.
chair?
Victoria Bruce, I'll send you all the.
Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so that's send rep. Okay, government updates. I think I saw Fatima is on. Let's take you first.
Hi everyone, Fatima Maciel here with the Mayor's Office, representing Council Districts 1 and 9. I have here quite a few updates for you all actually. So the first one that's really important to take note of is that City Council is going to hold their annual review of our ALPRs. If you don't know what ALPR stand for, that is our automatic license plate readers that the San Diego Police Department uses to help solve a numerous amount of crimes such as kidnapping, shootings, hit and runs, you name it. Essentially, it's able to detect a license plate reader, and then that helps them track down if that same car was in the same area during a specific crime or incident. So this annual surveillance report will be coming to council early December. We still don't know the exact date, but the Privacy Advisory Board will actually be hearing it this Wednesday, November 5th at 5:30 p.m. And then it will be going to Public Safety Committee on November 12th at 2 p.m. The importance of this annual report is that its approval is contingent on whether or not we will continue to use the ALPRs. So if the council doesn't approve the report that's given to them, ALPRs will no longer be used in the city of San Diego, meaning that we will likely we'll likely see changes in SCPD's being on the ground essentially, because a lot of the detectives or a lot of the folks will need to be pulled into their investigative and crimes unit to help make up for the loss of ALPRs. So essentially we will have to balance that out, and that's something that we are prepared for in case council does not approve this report. But we really do advise that the public and the community come out to support this item. The mayor strongly stands with ALPRs. They have been an incredible tool that we use throughout the city. Actually, in 2024, it's helped aid in 1/3 of the homicide investigations that we've seen in the city of San Diego. Obviously, there's a lot more data on all of that, and I'm happy to go in and chat with any of you who are interested in this type of technology that's being used and what's going to be presented at council. Again, I highly encourage you to go to the November 5th reading just so you have an initial idea of what exactly it's going to be when it comes to council early December. Another really important item that our office is bringing forth, as you all heard, Balboa parking rates have been set for the most part, but a new part of the package that came forth with Balboa Park is establishing prices for monthly, quarterly, and annual parking passes for residents. So our office will be presenting at the Balboa Park Committee on Wednesday, November 5th at 4 p.m. We invite anybody from any of the council district offices to join to learn about those parking passes and what the rates are going to be.
Excuse me, Fatima, sorry, I am on the Balboa Park Committee and it's on Thursday at 4 p.m.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's
Thursday
always
at 4
on a
p.m.
Thursday.
I will go ahead and correct that. I know I put it on my report as Wednesday as well, so I'll send that updated report. Thank you so much. So yes, Thursday at 4 p.m. In addition to that, they will also be discussing the new special event fee. So this is going to be for anyone who's hosting any type of special event at Balboa Park. Essentially, those that new permit and those fees will essentially make up for the loss of parking for anybody who's trying to use parking in Balboa Park during that time of the event. So that will also be going forth. Like I said, it's going to be at 4 p.m. this Thursday at the Santa Fe room in Balboa Park. And then lastly, another thing that I want to highlight here, about a week and a half ago, City Council approved the investment of nearly $2 million of parking meter revenues for the much needed improvements, infrastructure repairs needed in our communities. This comes essentially from our action to pause the city community's parking district program. So essentially, the money that parking meters create, that all of that will be going towards repairing infrastructure needs in your own community. So Mid-City actually has a parking district, and so that includes Normal Heights. So any revenue that's coming out of those parking meters will be going towards any street infrastructure related things. Right now we're focusing on streetlights. I think in the last week and a half, Mid-City received over at least 25 streetlights fixed. They will be coming back in the next few weeks to continue that work. If there's any specific areas that you know are part of the community parking district that you would like to highlight that you think needs a little more additional work that could be used from these revenues, feel free to reach out to me. We are taking that feedback and providing it to transportation so they can apply it. And then lastly here, as you all know, the community recreational needs assessment is out. They are starting to do their town halls and focus groups. So if you're interested in participating on that, there is a link in the report that I sent out with all those dates and information on where you can participate. They are happening all across the city and they are specific to each district. So make sure that you look out for the specific ones happening in District 9. So those are all the updates that I have for today. I'm open to any questions though.
Any questions from the room?
Fatima, you didn't talk about your trash picking. That was very nice. Thank you for doing that.
Oh yes. This last on Sunday morning, we picked the mayor and I went to go join the Kensington, Talmadge, College Area, and Alvarado Estates group to go pick up trash. That's a monthly volunteer pickup group. If you haven't heard of them or participated in their group pickups, highly encourage you to check them out. Yes, it's my second one this year, so it's always nice to join them. It was a really great event.
Great. You weren't here during public comment, but we did have a comment about street sweeping. Just wanted to pass that on to you that we seem to be behind on the scheduled street sweeping for our community.
Do you
I'm not
have
sure if
that
that fits into
specific-
infrastructure.
Oh, okay. Do you have the specific street by any chance, or is it just a general pattern you're seeing across Normal Heights?
I think the comment was a general pattern, but I'm sure that there was some specific streets meant, that were of concern. They would be, south of Adams, so I'm thinking it might be Madison.
Okay.
Okay, yes, and Monroe Avenue.
Madison and Monroe Avenue. Okay, perfect. I'll look into those and see what's going on. If they do miss them, sometimes they'll go back on a different day. If not, we'll go ahead and make sure that that's not something that occurs again. So I'll follow up with their stormwater department here.
There's also, a section of, Monroe between Adams and Collier. That's, the street is, in very bad repair, so it tends to build up a lot of gravel and, dirt.
You mean Mansfield?
Do you mean that?
Mansfield, yeah, sorry, Mansfield between, Adams and Collier. That's probably our worst street.
You said Mansfield?
Mansfield, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I will flag those two for them.
I'll email you, the list,
Okay, perfect.
okay?
And since I have your attention right now, I know there was two remaining questions that I owed you, Paul, in regards to things that came up at the last meeting. So I don't have an update on any additional parking meters going on Adams Avenue. There's no information on that quite yet to share yet. So I will get to you once that is updated. And then in terms of the what are they called? The property markers, property line markers. I checked in with DSD and the county, and they said that a while back they had provided, or that their own land surveyors went out there and they confirmed that everything on their end looked good and was confirmed to whatever data and information they had publicly available. So they said that the next steps would be if the residents have specific concerns about their property line markers, that it would be best to get their own land surveyor to confirm that, because on our end and the county's end, they all align. So they're not sure where the misinformation is coming from. So they already went ahead and did their own assessment, and it came back that it was, they were correct. So I can go ahead and forward you that information that they shared with me, but that was my understanding from my conversation with them that I had last week.
I will get, the information to Randy because she has all of that information on tap, because she did hire her own surveyors and has demonstrated that there is a disjoint between the official maps from 1906 and the current maps. So everyone currently is going off new maps, but those don't match what was actually built on the ground in 1906. So that's where the disjoint is. And the documentation, it's sort of like doing a title search. So I'll get that over to Ramey and make sure that she connects with you on that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Danielle, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I just forwarded to the board and you, Paul, the information on the Balboa Park Committee that's coming up this Thursday evening. And for Fatima, was there some kind of an event that the mayor was at the bottom of Aldine Drive under the Fairmont Bridge on Friday morning?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Danielle. So there's actually been a lot of work that our ESD and fire rescue team has been doing recently in the open space canyons around Aldine and Fairmont. So there is, like I said, open space city owned property there. So what they went ahead and went about 2 weeks ago, I want to say, ESD went ahead and did brush management or brush abatement in that area. So they cleared out any additional brush that wasn't needed in that area to obviously the 50% level overview level of what they can do to abate brush management per the biologists that were also there. And then last Friday, October 31st, ESD and fire rescue both went out there to apply an additional layer of Citrotech. So Citrotech is a special fire resilient spray that essentially adds an additional layer in case a fire does happen. It slows it down, allows it basically to not spread as fast, giving fire rescue enough time to get there and ensure that they can provide whatever resources and safety they need to put out a fire. So that was sprayed in that area as well. And they're doing a few other locations across the city that have open space canyons similar to Aldine. So that's where the mayor was at. And so was Councilmember Shawnee Lovera. So they both joined in spraying that area. So we hope to continue doing that work, obviously contingent on funding. Citra Tech came from a state grant that Fire Rescue received. So as long as we continue to receive those grants from the state, then this is something that we will continuously keep doing in these open space areas.
Thank you so much. Don't forget about Normal Heights.
Thanks for the promo. Anybody else for Fatima? Oh, yes.
I just want to make a kind of question, kind of a comment about the rollout of the trash fees, the trash bin fees. I've just received both one of my bins and also my property tax bill for the next year. And I'm being charged as if I have a large size trash bin, even though I've chosen to have a smaller one, which means I'm being charged an extra $130. And I just want to say, and apparently I'm going to get this credited back on my next year's property tax bill. But I think it's really kind of outrageous and unfair that the city is charging people for something that they're not using for a year and promising to pay them back a year from now. I mean, I think it's kind of a scam, actually. So that's my comment. It's not really a question. I'm sure you can't answer it. It's not a question. It's just a comment of something that I think is really outrageous and unfair, and it's probably affecting every property owner in the city.
So I guess in summary, it's an issue of accurate billing and the refund process.
They're billing people as if, I mean, if you deliberately choose to have a smaller trash can, which I did because I don't have a lot of trash these days, everything gets recycled.
Yeah.
I'm still being billed as if I have a full-size trash can for the next year. And then apparently I'll get a credit a year from now. So meanwhile, the city is using my money, which they really owe me.
Yeah.
For a year, and they're gonna pay me back in a year, if they remember. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, now if anybody has ideas on how we could survey the community to find out if this is a one-off or if there's a
I
trend
think
here.
it's how they're running the program.
Yeah, we have,
We all
Yep.
have same problems.
Yeah.
okay,
It's in
because
their
it seems like
description of how they designed the program to
Mhm.
benefit themselves.
it seems like Normal Heights, is mostly populated by small dwelling units that, if they're not having commercial services for, commercial property, then the properties themselves are 1 and 2 bedroom cottages or ADUs, which don't generate a lot of trash and will probably opt for the smaller bins. So it seems
Yeah.
like that would be a fairly large issue for Normal
Yeah,
Heights.
I'm sure it's a pretty common. I think I mean, I don't know about people in the room, but I mean, a lot of things are getting recycled now.
Yeah.
At least in my house, and so there's not a lot of actual trash. And which is why I opted for the smaller bin, also to save myself a bit of money. Because these new trash, the new fees are, it's like $500, $525 precise, on
Okay.
top of my property taxes.
Well, this sounds like something that we could do a survey on and maybe have as an agenda item next month.
Well, I just think it's really,
So Fatima, why don't we keep you in the loop on our research into the billing issue here? And then that way you'll be able to have some response at our next meeting.
Yeah. In the meantime, I'll definitely look into it on my end. I'm not sure what's they're looking at on the billing end of things, but I can try to see what's going on to see if we can get a better concrete answer for you, because my understanding is that shouldn't be happening, but I can double check with them and see what's going on their end, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
the literature that the city has distributed to homeowners describes exactly that this is how they plan. This is
Yeah.
exactly how they plan. Brian, are you nodding?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
That, you know, you won't get a refund this year, you'll get it a year from now.
Yeah, because they
And I
did
don't
the
know any-
property taxes before people had, decided what size bin they were.
Well, no, because we had to, we had to say what we wanted in September or something like that.
Yeah,
And then
the
the
deadline
taxes-
was until, anyway, the deadline was
But-
in October and
Yeah.
the county's
Well,
on a
it
different schedule.
it sounds like it's obviously a problem, multiple households.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a good thing to take up.
Okay.
Great.
Regardless,
Okay.
I'll take the feedback back to the team so that they know what's going on in the community. I appreciate you for flagging that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone for, D9 representations, Shawnee Rivera's office? Okay, how about for county, state, or federal? Then we'll move to local organizations. Any news on the AABA? Does anybody have any knowledge there? El Cajon Business Improvement District, usually Gary Weber's, speaks to that. Normal Heights Community Association, Normal Heights Urban Arts, Adams Community Recreation Advisory Group.
We had the Halloween event, so it came out pretty good. And, we're still looking for people for our meetings, any more members for that. It's, usually the first Tuesday of the month the fourth Tuesday, sorry, at 6 o'clock.
Okay, and then for Normal Heights for Smart Growth, I'll speak to that. The community garden is in progress, and I will pull up our map. I'll share this. Zoom. There. So the process that we're going through, and this is on the Normal Heights Community Planning Group webpage. This is the map, the roadmap that we're currently working through. We've identified the site. Obviously, it's in the north end of Ward Canyon Park, just across the canyon itself, above the dog park. So it sits between a dog park and some residences along 40th Street. We've done some fundraising. We currently have 5,000 in pledges and 1,600 in donations. So we'll continue to drive on that. The site plan is completed and it's been reviewed by both the city and San Diego Master Gardeners, and they've provided input on soil drainage, ADA access, you name it. They've San Diego Master Gardeners has provided a lot of resources for how to put that together, including irrigation. So the City of San Diego engagement, we've seen that when they came to us last month with their ideas report. They're starting to mention the community garden as for park points, so that they're very interested in making this a success. We've had quite a few site preps, weeding sessions. Thank you for everybody on the board who's came out and pulled weeds. It was phenomenal. We got the ground covered with solarizing plastic, and that sat long enough to burn out the weed roots. So at this point, the land is dormant. Next up is the plumbing plan. We were given the specifications by the city, which include a sub-meter and a backflow preventer and a couple of other devices that sum total comes to about $10,000 in parts. It'll cost about another $10,000 to get that installed in terms of labor. Question is, right now we're looking at, do we do it, which would be about the same cost? Or do we have the city do it and they're getting back to us what they would quote for that? So we're expecting that the ballpark would be somewhere around $18,000 to $20,000 to get the water line to the park, to the garden. The governing board is currently being formed. We have a couple of people that are interested in being on the board in those positions. And that's essential for the community garden board to become a 501c3 registered with the state so that it becomes a nonprofit foundation. It would be able to open a bank account. It would be able to collect tax deductible donations. And it would be able to purchase the insurance that's required for the special use permit. And it would be able to enter into a contract with the city for the special use permit. So the legal entity of that governing board is essential for everything we're doing going forward and downstream. Once the insurance and the special use permit is in place and we receive the special use permit, that's a huge milestone because then we get right of access. Then we have to come up with the board. The newly formed board will have to come up with what are the rules for the gardeners, what are the fees, what's the fee structure, how do they keep the community garden solvent? And then comes, soil prep, irrigation, pathways, the build out that'll happen once we have the right of access from the city. Raised beds, signage, structures, benches, seating, sheds, all of that needs to be built out. And then there would be a selection of a garden manager that's typically a gardener who's just there every day, and it's the boots on the ground for the board, so that if there's a gardener has a question, or maybe there's some rodents that need to be reported to the city for removal, that could happen. And once all of that happens, we can have an opening ceremony. So we still have a long way to go. But we've made some really good progress. I'd say we're about halfway down this road. The Linda Vista Bayview Garden took 3 years to get in. We're now about 1.5 years into this. So we're making some pretty good progress. Anyway, if you have any questions on that, you can find it on the normalheightscpg.org website.
Paul, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Sounds awesome. Sounds very, very cool. Thank you for sharing. I wonder if to help with the fundraising side of things, if you could get some in-kind services for a lot of those built pieces, maybe work with any local building or contracting, landscaping organizations. Once the 501c3 is set up, they might be able to figure out like an in-kind donation and build a lot of that stuff out rather than having to have money where money is needed specifically for other things as well.
So we've had, there was a community garden down in City Heights that closed down because the land was changing hands. And we took on their tools and shed and wheelbarrow and a lot of the equipment, and thus in-kind donation. And then San Diego Master Gardeners has connections for us to get irrigation equipment from Hunter. So Hunter has a program where they provide, I think, $500 a month, $500 a year in Hunter irrigation devices like control valves and things like that. So, like if you have any leads and vice versa, the 501c3 funding is always a struggle.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
I've talked it all over, had any help from, there used to be a community garden in the corner of North Mountain View and 30.
Yes, the Bear House Garden,
Bear House Garden.
that's the one that we lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It changed, it's a changing hands situation, and now there's an ugly house.
The chair of Bear House Garden, quite possibly could end up being on our board. So there would be
Yeah, because I would think they'd have, that was there for 30 years.
Yes, so she would be bringing in the experience and expertise of that. And then there's also the woman who's running the City Heights Garden. She has experience and expertise that she's bringing to the table in terms of how to manage all the people who are going to be gardening. you know? Anytime you get a group of people in one space, you know, so, yeah, just making sure that everybody's having a good time and the plants are growing.
Did they sell the City Heights garden, like the land that it was on? Is that why?
Yeah, the land, it was in the backyard of a house that belonged to a plumbing company that was across the alley. So that plumbing company, the owner is retiring and closing down his business. And is thus selling off the office space and his storefront, but also the little cottage that he was using as an office.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the downside of private land. It moves faster.
Yeah.
They could just move in and do whatever they wanted. Whereas with the city, they have lots of rules, but will have good longevity. Next. Chair report. The CPC, the last meeting that had presentations on historic preservation, affordable housing and environmental sensitive lands. These are all things that are in progress with the city, especially the historic preservation was interesting because they're changing the rules of how how voting works with the historic preservation committee. And it doesn't look very good. So it's becomes too much under the control of the city and the mayor rather than the independent commission. So CPC voted against it. There was also a request for some map corrections related to not Encanto, I'm sorry. Thinking it's more like Eastern area in Idaho, but it's not our area, but basically the naming on maps vary between whether you were talking to DSD or you were talking to the fire department, the police department. Everybody had a different name for these different little communities in this area, and it was creating some confusion. So they were asking to have that, one single naming convention. Apparently, the police department has different names for everything all the way across the city because they manage things differently from land use. They're managing law enforcement. There was a request for a letter of support from the the Association for the City of La Jolla, which La Jolla is looking to become its own city. And that effort was undergoing some challenges from the city where the city had sued the organization saying that the votes that they did were not correct, and it was deemed a slap lawsuit, that it was frivolous, and so it was thrown out. So the city or the Association for the City of La Jolla is continuing with their efforts to get cityhood. But what they were asking for was for the CPC to recommend to the city not to appeal the decision because they felt that an appeal would be a waste of time and money for the city. They didn't really have a stake in it, like they didn't think that the appeal would be taken, but they thought that it was just going to be a waste of money, and they wanted us to make a recommendation. Ultimately, the CPC did not make that recommendation. They decided that it is the city's right to go to an appeal. So it's their civil right, even if it is a waste of money. That's it for CPC, other than that they're going to move to the next meeting will be December 2nd. Next up, standing committees, joint mid-city community plan update.
Yes, our last meeting, the draft ideas report is out. It was mentioned earlier in the meeting, but that's kind of like the precursor towards an actual plan draft. So I think now we're starting to get to a point where you can actually see some things, and it's still a really good time to provide input. We're still very early in the process, so I'd highly recommend taking a look at that. And so that's available online. That's kind of was the whole agenda for the October meeting. And I'll keep the group posted when the next meeting is, but I don't know at this point.
Send me that info for where it's online, and get that link in on the website. Historical property review. I don't see Dan. Usually takes care of that. Advisory committees under, utility undergrounding and street lighting mad.
Yes, so undergrounding, and the street lighting mad, basically, we are at a point where we have draft locations of where the potential acorn lights may go. This is in block 3DD, which is the first to be underground in Normal Heights. It's the northeastern portion of the neighborhood. So hopefully our little committee will get together. If you're interested in where acorn lights might go, please let me know and I'll let you know when our meeting is. And then otherwise, we did invite the city to come and speak, provide an informational presentation. Because otherwise the next presentation won't be until pre-construction, which is currently scheduled for next December. Thought it might be nice for some community engagement. Yes, December 2026. They politely declined. But I think we have a couple of ideas for alternative ways to kind of keep the community informed. They have been really good when we bug them a lot to answer questions eventually. So I do think if anyone has questions about undergrounding, about the mat, continue to ask them. We probably don't know the answer, but I will bug the heck out of city staff until I get one. So that's kind of, yeah, thanks. That's kind of where things stand there.
Thank you. Community engagement and finance committees.
I think we talked about dissolve.
We dissolved the community engagement and finance. Okay. Then we're adjourned. Thank you.